Well, here we are, really blustery conditions at Naseby Reservoir, Northamptonshire. Here today with fellow Free Spirit consultant team member Mark Hutchinson. Mark's made a name for himself with his phenomenal casting over the last few years. So today I want to look at some of the techniques, if Mark will show us, his casting styles and some of the rigs required.
Right, Sean, I've brought some bits and bobs along with me to, obviously for fish safety and so forth, and obviously the main important thing is the casting. I shall start off with the rod, obviously. The rod that I brought along here is the highest 200. Obviously we do the highest here for people that can't probably compress this one. And I've been using these rods for about 4 years now, maybe 5 years, and it's still the same rod that I've been using from day one. Normally they're in pieces, but as I say, the Free Spirit ones have been standing the test of time, and they're still going. We've done a test on this at one of the shows, on a new rod, and the test curve is identical to an actual brand new rod. Only difference was there was a very slight difference in the crispness, but after 5 years or 4 years of use thereabouts, it's still going strong. I'll say a little bit about the rings while I'm at it. I'm 110% convinced that 50 mil ringing makes a difference. It's as simple as that. So I should just go on to about the reels there, obviously. I deal with Shimano all the time. I've had these for years, but you don't always need to spend a lot of money on these reels. And I mean, one of the ones I want to show you here is a £50 reel, which is a navvy. At one of the shows we've just done the other week, on a £99 spod rod, we've actually put a spod, the quarter spod, 196 yards, measured across the grass. Now, as you can see, the line lay, again, is very good. On this reel here, I've actually added one big washer. From as soon as I've taken it out of the box, added a washer, filled it up, and that's given me that line lay. I don't know if you can actually see that there.
That's absolutely spot
absolutely smack on. For casting distance, wants to be forward. All my fishing, I always use a forward tape. I also want to just talk about some of the other bits and bobs that I'm using for my long range. I've used the Katana now for, as you probably know, for years.
Yeah.
It's a good robust line. Stated it breaks at £10, but I've had it breaking at £18 on my tests.
You only need to look through the tackle box catalogue for the diameter compared to breaking strains, and
it is phenomenal.
Comes out on top most.
Phenomenal. I mean, this is £10. It's 0.30.
Yeah.
Now, I've had a lot of people using. My mates use £8 for distance casting, and it's breaking at about £14.
Yeah.
And it's 0.28.
Yeah.
It's very, very good casting line. It's as simple as that. Good abrasion resistant. And
good reliable line.
Good reliable line, yeah, that's right. The biggest thing that people need to look at is the diameters. The diameter on that is 0.30.
Yeah. It's one of these things that surprises me, so few people look at diameters, yet the diameter is a closer resemblance of what the line's going to break at than whatever's printed on the box.
100% correct.
You know yourself, some people understate, some people overstate. You don't know where you're going at all with that, but the diameter is far more accurate.
It is, yeah. I mean, the tackle box did a test for you again, as we say. You can actually compare the diameters against the poundage.
Well, I mean, the tackle box test we keep talking about, it's almost industry standard now.
Yeah, it's the Bible.
Test they did, but
as far as I'm concerned, it's the Bible.
An excellent one.
For line, it's there for you. It's, if you can look at 0.30 or below for distance.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I know there's a Shimano one you were showing me earlier, which I'm particularly interested in. A tapered leader on the end of 220 odd metres of line. First one of these I've been hearing about them, but I've not actually seen it. I've seen massive benefits with these.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the biggest thing. I mean, I've been using them a little bit. I talked about 7 years ago about this being done to different companies. Said it couldn't be done, but same again, people like Shimano prove you wrong. So.
Well, for years, the fly anglers have bought tapered leaders anyway, which was natural progression, went on to the tapered shot leaders for sea anglers and carp anglers. And I mean, all they need to do is make it longer.
That's all they had to do, and I couldn't see why they couldn't do it. But Shimano have done it, and I say you've got this is 220 metres, so it goes from 0.33, so base it on about a £12 line, to a 0.57.
Yeah.
But the beauty about it is you've got no knot. So all these places where they say no knot above your rig, you haven't got a knot. As in for leaders, I tend to use armour cord. It's robust. Same again, Cord have actually done their tests on it and so forth. I actually like the stuff. I find it gentle on your fingers as well. Overhead casting, I can use a 30.
Just point out here as well that the armour cord is a braid rather than a
Yes,
nylon.
it is a braid, yeah. The reason why I use a braid is if I'm using a knot, is firstly, the knot is very small compared to, say, a £40 nylon leader. Again, that's down to fish safety, I believe. It's as simple as that. Secondly, or mainly probably one of the main things, is any effort you put into the cast goes straight into the rod. That's right, it's not being absorbed in elasticity. As soon as you get a bit of nylon, if that was the same bit of nylon, you could stretch it, 2 or 3 inches, where this does not stretch it. It's as simple as that. Now that's for overhead chucking and off the floor casting I use it. If I do have to go off the floor and I'm doing what they call a South African and there's nobody around, I will actually go up to a £65 Spectrex, which is by your line company. P-Line, there you go. Not my line company. But I like your line company, but the one that you like to use. I mean, I've only ever broke that once, and I have been caning the hell out of like 7-ounce bags off the floor with these rods, and it's only gone on me once. But that's been me getting stupid with it, sort of thing. But as a rule of thumb, the 50 on the arm cord, I like the colour of it as well.
I understand all the benefits of the braided leader, but there's quite a lot of orders nowadays banning braid of all sorts. Is there any particular nylons you favour for leaders?
It's a simple dial sensor. It's £25. Frank White showed me it years and years ago when it first came out, and so you can do an overhand knot. That's the biggest test we did, and you can really put a lot of power into the cast with £25.
And cheap enough to keep replacing.
Yeah, just keep replacing it, but same again, it's the knot problem I don't really like. So. Yeah.
From my own fishing, the type of rig you use can affect the distance you cast in no end. What sort of rigs do you favour, obviously with the safety of the fish in mind as well?
I've used a few rigs in the past. I mean, I do like if I'm using no leaders, and I'm placed like same again like horseshoe, I do like the clip because you've got a bit of weed. But for out and out casting, you won't beat the helicopter rig. Yeah. Obviously, we've touched on fish safety, and as you know, I like to use braid where possible. So, obviously, I do away with the braid up the front or even the tubing, where possible. If you don't have to use tubing, then I will use the safe zone leader by quarter. I mean, you can put a clip on that if you wanted to, as long as it's all set up right. There was a bit of an issue people were saying about these safe zone leaders on the forums, but when they're doing the test when they're dry. I mean, that's coming off there it's starting to get a bit stiffer there. Yeah. But that's
different
dry.
Situation once it's lubricated.
It's lubricated. As soon as that becomes wet, it just flies off. I mean, that's now actually onto the leader. Now, the reason why, again, I like to use this, or I say lead core is one of my favourites as well, is that once everything's off the lead core, the leader, or the actual safe zone leader, is actually thicker than the braid. Yeah. If that was nylon, it wouldn't be in that situation. It'd be very much the same.
Particularly with the knot scenario.
It's knot scenario. So once it's come off this, in other words, it's slid up. If you've got, say, you crack off or got broken off, once it's up over that will fly all over, literally down the leader and over the knot. Yeah. So all the fish is carrying is simply the hook link. Yeah. As you can see there, I'm actually using it as a loop to loop, but rather than bring this loop over, I'm actually keeping it against the main body. And as you can see, when it pulls down, it stops any cutting action into the safe zone leader.
Very much spreads the load.
You've got it. It's spreading the load onto the bulk, and it never causes that cutting action. With this material, I would never use a standard knot. No. Never use it. That is the knot I would actually use every time, and that's just a figure of 8.
Everyone's got to have noticed by now, you've not actually broken your finger there, have you?
Well, it is a leather finger stool. Because I'm using a braided leader, even a nylon leader, if you're casting correctly, you will need I mean, obviously, be a plumber, and I used to still cut my hands. Yeah. If you're going to use any sort of leader and power cast, you need a leather finger stool. Make sure it's leather though.
That's right. The anglers who claim they don't need the finger stools are simply not compressing the rod and winding the rod up as much as they could.
The biggest problem is with braid. I mean, you can see that there. That's only probably a couple of sessions old. Yeah. And it's taken the covering off the outside. Now, if that was your finger,
you'd be in a mess.
You'd be in a mess.
It's made a massive difference.